Okay, folks, so whenever I say, are you ready to listen? I need you to give me 2 pats. So 2 pats on your thighs. Then I need you to give me 2 claps. So 2 claps with your hands. Then I need you to give me 2 thumps. So a stomp with your right foot and a stomp with your left foot. And then I need you to say, yeah, so that I know you're ready to listen. All right, so it's 2 pats, 2 claps, 2 thumps, and then, yeah. All right, let's give it a go. I want to see if you're ready. So, are you ready to listen? Yeah. I said, are you ready to listen? Yeah. Brilliant stuff, folks. It seems like you're ready to listen. So how's it going? It's Pat here from Asphalt Green's Recess Enhancement Program. And I'm here with another instructional video for you, this time for our game, Pat, Clap, Thump. All right? Now, before we hop into the details of the game, it's important that we start off the way we always do, and that is with a safety check. So, before we start any game and after we finish any game, we always want to make sure that we and our students are washing our hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. We also want to make sure that at no point during the game, anybody's hands are going anywhere near their faces, okay? If anybody has to cough or sneeze, we'll just encourage them to dab so that they're coughing or sneezing into their elbow. It's also super important that at all times during the game, we are encouraging the students to maintain at least 6 feet of distance between each other, okay? We want to make sure everyone is properly social distanced so that everyone can remain safe, all right? So, if you finished your safety check and you feel great about moving on, fantastic. Let's move on then, all right? So just give me 2 pats, 2 claps, 2 thumps, and we'll get started. So it's seeming like everyone's ready to go. So as mentioned, the name of the game is Pat, Clap, Thump. What's the name of the game? Yes, you said Pat, I'm sorry. Well, no, what can I do? Oh, that's the name of the game. Yes, that's right. It's Pat, Clap, Thump. Pat, Clap, Thump. Brilliant stuff. Now, this is a great game for students in 3rd grade up through 8th grade, all right? Or students within that age range or ability level range. As to where this game can be played, well, this is a circle game. So long as your space allows for your students to form a circle or something akin to a circle, and they're all able to remain at least 6 feet apart while doing that, well, you can play it there, okay? So you can play it on a playground, you can play it in a gymnasium, you can play it in an auditorium if you have the space, and you can play it in a hallway if you have the space, okay? What's important here is safety. So long as everybody can remain at least 6 feet apart while forming the circle, you'll be good to go, okay? Speaking of safety, there is no equipment needed for this game. So students won't be sharing any of the same items. They won't be touching any of the same items. So we're all good to go on that front. So we have safety covered in this game. But did you expect anything less from Rep, right? And so this means that because we have safety covered and fun is a byproduct of safety, there's a guarantee here that this game is going to be a blast, especially since it's also a rep game. So let's get into the details of the game so I can show you why it's going to be a blast, all right? And as we always like to do when we get into the details of a game, we like to rep it out. So we'll start with our ready, talk a little bit about how we can get ready for Pat, Clap, Thump. So the first thing you're going to want to do in order to get ready for Pat, Clap, Thump is map out your play space and designate your boundaries. As mentioned, this is a circle game. So the space you're going to pick should be a space that allows for students to form a circle or something close to it, and it allows them to do that while staying 6 feet apart from every other student in the group, okay? Once you've found that space though, you can just visually mark off where you want the boundaries for that play space to be, okay? After doing that, you can then move into a safety sweep. So you can remove any items in the play space that might pose a safety risk to you or your students during the game, and you can have a think about how you're going to work around any items that maybe can't be moved. After completing your safety sweep, you can then begin to lay out equipment. But again, it's not totally necessary, okay? No equipment is needed for this game, but if you wanted to lay out cones or tape to mark off those boundaries you formed in your head earlier on, please feel free to do so. Visually marking boundaries is always helpful, not just for students, but for you too, okay? Once you've set up your play space and you're feeling like this is great, this is safe, I can't wait to get the students in here, well, how about you do just that, okay? And you can have the students gather up around you, and that can be them just standing 6 feet apart from one another around you. That could be forming a circle within the play space that you've created, or it could be just having them line up on one side of the play space, all while remaining 6 feet apart from one another, okay? So in order to help you do that though, you can use the attention grabber that I used at the beginning of this video to get their attention, okay? So, are you ready to listen? Yeah, I said, are you ready to listen? Yeah, and all right, if you're ready to listen, I need you to form a circle in the boundaries, and please make sure that you're standing 6 feet apart from every other person in the circle. And then once we've got that circle formed, I will explain the game. And then once you've done that, you're ready to obviously head into the E portion of the rep model, explain. Now, when explaining a game, it's always important to use a loud and clear voice. That way, all students can hear and understand you. You also want to make sure that as you're giving the instructions for the game, you're asking students specific questions about those instructions. That way, you can check for understanding and clarify anything that maybe you weren't super clear on. Some questions we would suggest you ask for this game are, well, when do you say your number? And what's the pattern? Now, those questions will make a little bit more sense as we talk through the instructions for the game. So I'm going to do that right now. And how about you follow along on the instruction sheet that you found on our website? So the first rule of Pat, Clap, Thump is something that you'll already have students in the process of doing. And that is to circle on up and stand 6 feet apart from one another. Once students have circled up though, you can begin to assign each student a number, okay? So if you have 10 students, well, 10 numbers will be given out. And you can explain to students that it's super important that they remember their number, because whatever their number is will determine where they are in the circle, and their number can change during the game, okay? So for instance, 1 can suddenly become 10, right? And so what that will mean will be 1 will have to move to where 10 is standing, and 10 will have to move up and take on number 9 and move to where 9 is standing, right? And so on and so forth, okay? So it's super, super important that they remember their numbers. So once every student has a number, you can then explain to the students that during this game, they will be following a pattern. And that pattern is, you guessed it, pat, clap, thump, all right? And you can explain to students that at the beginning of each round of this game, whoever is number 1 will start the pattern for the whole group, okay? So 1 will say, ready, set, go, pat, clap, thump, right? And then everyone will be doing it in unison with them. So this pattern will go around twice, okay? So everyone in the circle will do, right? But then on the third go around, what will happen is when one reaches the clap portion, right? They will say their number, right? So 1 on the first clap. And then on the second clap, we'll say the number of somebody else in the group, okay? So they'll do something like this. 1, 10, right? Then what will happen is on the next go round of the pattern, right? 10, when it reaches the clap part, 10 will then say on the first clap their number, so 10, and then on the second clap, another number in the group, so 3, right? So it'll look something like 10, 3, right? And so this pattern will continue on and on and on until somebody makes a mistake, okay? And whoever makes a mistake with the pattern, right, well, they are going to do jumping jacks equal to the number that they currently hold, okay? So if they're number 4 and they've made a mistake, well, they're going to do 4 jumping jacks. Or you can mix it up. They'll do 4 seconds of silly dancing, or they'll do 4 squats, whatever it might be, okay? And then once they've finished doing that, they will then move and take on the largest number in the group. So say 10 students, well, they'll move from 4 to 10, and then everyone will move up accordingly, all right? So 10 becomes 9, and then whoever was 5 becomes 4, all right? So on and so forth. So then the game will begin again, and whoever is number 1 will start off the pattern. They'll go through their 2 rounds of getting everybody comfortable with the pattern, so right? And then it'll begin again, and they'll say their number on the first clap, 1, and then the number of somebody else in the group on the second clap, 4, right? And it'll just keep going and going and going, and mistakes will keep happening. People will keep switching and swapping, and they'll get even more confused, and they'll have even more fun, all right? And that is pat, clap, thump. So that's an explanation of the rules for pat, clap, thump. So how about now we move on to the final portion of the rep model, P, play. Talk a little bit about how we can play the game so students are abiding by those rules. And how we can play the game so as to keep it interesting and engaging for students. Before we can do that though, are you ready to listen? Yeah, I said, are you ready to listen? Yeah. Well, brilliant stuff then. How about you gather on up and stand 6 feet apart from one another so we can talk about some tips. So our first tip is to practice the pattern with your students even before the game begins, okay? This game is frustrating enough with trying to remember the numbers and everyone constantly switching numbers. So you want to get this pattern down pat before the game even starts. It'll make it smoother and more fun for your students and smoother and more fun for you, okay? Once students have gotten the pattern down though, and they've started the game, it'll be important to remind students that they cannot start saying numbers until they have completed 2 successful go-rounds of the pattern, all right? So they, as a group, need to complete the pattern twice before anybody can say any numbers, all right? With that in mind though, if it seems like your students are struggling with that as a group, or if there's a few individual students who are growing visibly frustrated by it and just can't seem to get it, it's okay to change that up, okay? So maybe it's only after 1 completion of the pattern, or maybe they just start saying numbers right on the first go around of it, okay? Whatever enables your students to stay involved in a safe and fun way, okay? That's what we're going for. Also, if students, when they're making mistakes, right, and then they're doing the exercises equal to the number that they're holding, right? So you want to mix those exercises up so that they're not just doing the same thing all the time. So that they're not always just doing sit-ups. So they're not always just doing jumping jacks, okay? Keep it interesting and engaging by swapping those things up, all right? A few other modifications we have for you that might help make the game a little bit more interesting and engaging for students are, well, adding in a new movement. So not just pat, clap, and thump, but maybe you add in some snaps. So pat, clap, thump, snaps. Could be changing up the pacing. So maybe you started off as pat, clap, thump, but maybe in later rounds you have it as, right? And you can just keep speeding it up. So that you're making it more and more challenging. Students are making a few more mistakes, right? And maybe you can change up when students have to say their numbers, all right? So maybe it's not on claps, maybe it's on pats, thumps, or on the new movement that you added in, okay? Whatever can make the game a little bit more challenging, a little bit more interesting for students, we say go for it, okay? These are our tips and suggestions, but you know your students better than us, so read what it is that they're enjoying, read what you think that they're capable of doing, and then throw it out there to make it even more engaging and more fun for them, all right? So those are all of our tips and suggestions, which means that we're at the end of the rep model and therefore the end of this video. Now, before we head on off, are you ready to listen? Yeah. I said, are you ready to listen? Yeah. Well, brilliant stuff. How about we gather on up and stand 6 feet apart from one another one last time? And the reason why we're doing that is because I want to say thank you. Thank you very much for following along on this video. I hope you find it helpful, and I hope you have a great time playing pat, clap, thump with your students, okay? Feel free to check out our website in order to find even more games that you can play with your students. And yeah, we'll catch you the next time.